Hello everyone, and welcome back to an episode in my History of series that I didn't quite entirely expect to make this week. But in celebration of his absolutely stellar gameplay reveal trailer, as well as the rest of the incredible news coming out about Tekken 8, I knew I had to talk about one of my all-time favorite characters in fighting games, the leader of the Manjitou, and wielder of its cursed blade, Yoshimitsu. Now the ninja himself has made quite the infamous impact on the franchise. Whilst he's never been integral to that of the main plot, he's always a joy to see, whether that's been in Soul Calibur or even the Tekken series. The ever charismatic Yoshi is a pleasure to see on each and every roster he's a part of, always having a new and wacky design in each and every installment. He's always brought something unique to the table that allows him to stand out. But what is the tale behind this icon? Well, we will be exploring that in today's video to get you all prepared for Tekken 8's release. But quick reminder, mind you, before we start, the story of Tekken itself originates from a really interesting time in the 90s, where narrative stories were more confined to that of the arcades, in which story lore and narrative were largely confined to that of game manuals and arcade ladder endings. Thus, I'm actually piecing the story together from the knowledge left of that era, as well as what other bits of information have come out since then, or has contradicted it in some way, as it allows me to paint a better picture of this character and his origin within the Tekken series. And as always, if you like what we do here and wish to see more Tekken on the channel, please do give this video a thumbs up, as it gives me an idea of what you'd like to see, especially since the Mishima saga is reaching its climax in Tekken 8. So without any further ado, let's talk about Yoshimitsu. Now Yoshimitsu isn't so much a name, but a long-running legacy title passed down the Manjitou clan, a small renegade group of thieves that would steal from the rich and give back to that of the poor. The title of Yoshimitsu is passed down from generation to generation, with the oldest one currently recorded actually having appeared in Soul Calibur 1, which does, ever so loosely, share the same universe with Tekken. So with its recorded history, we're able to learn many things about the Yoshimitsu mantle, like that in order for someone to become Yoshimitsu, they must challenge and kill their predecessor to obtain their title, sacrificing them to the legendary blade to mark the passage of ownership. And the katana itself is a fine, beautiful weapon of precision, yet it is one tainted by a dark curse, as once unsheathed, it yearns for blood, compelling the owner to perform violent atrocities in order to insatiate its lust. To bestow control over it, the katana would also be named Yoshimitsu, bringing both the blade and wielder as one single being. So for a time, its bloodlust would be halted. And it should be pretty clear at this point that there can only ever be one Yoshimitsu at a time. In fact, we can see this passing of the torch in Soul Calibur 5, where we meet the successor who stands over his predecessor's head. Of course, much has happened since the age of Soul Edge, taking us closer to that of the present day. And here, the Manjitou clan are better known as the Manji clan, or Manji party. The true name and identity of the current Yoshimitsu is actually left completely unknown, but much like his predecessor, he still firmly believes in their codes and traditions, continuing to spread wealth amongst the less fortunate. Yet, there would be one that would not follow these principles, a kunoichi by the name of Kunimitsu. Seeing the goods as her own, she only ever stole for her own personal interests. Thus, she would be exiled from the Manjitou, but retain a never-ending hatred towards Yoshimitsu, something she would actually pass on to her daughter. Now this takes us to the very first tournament of the series, Tekken 1. In this installment, whilst the main story and narrative focus is primarily on that of the Mishimas, For Yoshimitsu, he would actually enter this tournament not to prove his worth as a fighter, but he merely entered as a facade to steal the funds of the tournament. Yet, instead of taking it, his gaze fell upon a far more dubious foe, the sumo wrestler Ganryu, a man who carelessly indulged in his wealth and spent it aimlessly through gambling, seeing him as someone worthy of reparations. Whilst the outcome of his time in the tournament is left unknown, by the end of it, he and the Manji clan would be successful in claiming his wealth, distributing it publicly, much to the dismay of the greedy sumo, with even some of the funds itself being handed out to the Law family. So the Manji clan ride off into the sunset with another successful raid, which now takes us onto its sequel, Tekken 2. And after the events of the last game, quite a bit actually happens behind the scenes, as prior to the tournament, an unsuccessful raid on a Mishima Zaibatsu facility leads to a horrific turn of events, resulting in Yoshimitsu completely losing his sword arm. Left in a critical condition at death's doorstep, he by all intents and purposes should have died. But in a selfless act of kindness, the facility owner, Dr. Bosconovitch, would not only nurse him back to health, but attach a prosthetic arm to his lost appendage. Deeply touched by his kindness, Yoshimitsu would be in his debt by his selfless act, feeling a somewhat kindred spirit with the doctor as he returned back home. But as soon as he does, he would learn that the doctor was kidnapped by Kazuya Mishima. Looking to repay his debt, Yoshi would travel out to the second King of Iron Fist tournament, solely with the intention of saving his friend. And again, not much is known about his participation, but by the end of it, he is able to save Bosconovitch, using his prosthetic arm as a propeller no less. So the doctor is saved, taken to the home of the Manji clan. So this now brings us into Tekken 3, and a lot of time has passed between the events of 2 to 3. 21 years to be exact. And whilst not much has happened with the clan during this time skip, as they continued robbing from the wealthy, prior to the events itself, the doctor would fall fatally ill, believed to be caused from his time working under Kazuya Mishima, operating the cold sleep machines. Yet, his illness isn't incurable, as theoretically, the only thing that could cleanse his system would be the blood of the mysterious Ogre, an Aztec fighter who was wandering the lands and hunting worthy warriors. So, with his friend's life on the line once more, Yoshi would enter the third tournament to draw out the monster. Now, we don't know the exact details of how this encounter goes, as it would be Jin that defeats Ogre, but Yoshi is successful in acquiring the blood, bringing it back to the facility, and accidentally turning one of their rats ginormous. The clarity of these events are left unknown due to the gag, but seeing as Bosconovitch appears later on, it is believed that he was cured of his illness. 2 long years would pass by into the events of Tekken 4, and time was not kind to the clan, with their funds diminishing and numbers dwindling. The fate of the clan could only be described as dire at best, as how could they help the world if they couldn't help themselves? With the 4th tournament announced, Yoshi planned their biggest heist yet, to steal from right under Heihachi's nose. You see, he would enter the tournament with the intention of creating a unionship with the Zaibatsu, something understandably he expected Heihachi to decline. But by having him take his attention off his vault, the clan would be able to swoop in and steal his funds. So with the heist complete, the Manji clan would be restored, but little did Yoshi know his own selfless act of kindness would lead to his clan's near destruction. Moving on to Tekken 5, it is revealed that during his escape, the ninja would find an injured Brian, and the naive Yoshi, seeing all life as precious, would take him home to their facility, having the doctor work his magic to save Fury's life. But 1 month later, he would receive an emergency SOS. Once entering the facility, he found it in tatters, with his fellow clansmen scattered dead. By some miracle, he was fortunate to find the doctor alive, but the damage had been done, with Bosconovitch revealing that it was in fact Brian responsible for this. That once he had been repaired and salvaged, as he was a cyborg, upon waking up, he would go on a savage rampage. So, having learnt of his participation in the next Iron Fist, Yoshi would enter looking to avenge his clan. And inevitably, they do actually cross paths, with Yoshi presumably the winner. The details regarding this can only be described as spotty at best, but what we do learn in the following game is that Yoshi's interference crumbled his plans. Now taking us onto Tekken 6. And something very peculiar happens with Yoshimitsu. As once Brian was dealt with, the blade of Yoshimitsu had awoken, having grown hungry for the blood of the Forsaken. After years of suppression, the unquenchable thirst had finally returned, being impossible to ignore as it gnawed away at his sanity, beckoning him to cut down the monsters of the world. With the balance of the blade deteriorating, Yoshi would be forced to take on another blade, the Fumakan, a counterbalance katana that could halt the endless bloodlust of its sister blade. So during the events of the 6th tournament, he would enter it to restore his blade back to normal, as he had heard of a great evil awakening. But with Jin having been the one to defeat Azazel, and Yoshi having played a very minor role in the campaign, it's left rather open-ended as to what became of this plot. As the next time we see him in Tekken 7, the curse doesn't seem to be as prominent, yet he still retains both blades. In 7's main narrative, which for the most part does strongly focus on the end of the Heihachi-Kazuya feud, Yoshi plays a very minor role in the game, where after Heihachi announces the next King of the Iron Fist tournament, he would infiltrate their dojo, being surprised as he would encounter Leo. Now, currently there's actually 2 outcomes to this altercation, with neither having been officially canonized. But there's one where Yoshi wins, leaving Leo in a critical condition, to which he then attempts to perform CPR, only to get hit in the groin for his efforts. And then there's Leo's ending, in which Yoshi is befriended, before the two then part ways. So this now takes us to the newest installment, Tekken 8. And things look to be in a very, very interesting place. And with the world in the firm clutches of Kazuya, it is torn asunder by tyranny and war. Because of this, Yoshimitsu would be hired to gain information on the Mishimas, tracking down a secret underground cave where they apparently performed exorcisms. Yet, as he dives deeper, the evil resonates with his blade, causing it to awaken once more as Yoshi struggles to retain its immense power. In a desperate attempt to halt it, he would even feed it his own blood, but this only causes the blade to become more aggressive. It is only once he returns back home and meets with the village elders where they come to a conclusion that they need to exorcise the sword to rip out the very evil that's tainting it. But how is that possible? Well, we gotta play Tekken 8's campaign to find out. So with that said, that has been it for the history of Yoshimitsu, a character I have a fond love of across the fighting game genre as a whole. He's just such a wholesome, weird and wacky character across both the Soul Calibur and Tekken timelines. Thus, his official reveal and inclusion in Tekken was something I absolutely had to talk about today. So with that said, what are your current thoughts on Yoshimitsu, and what would you say is his best design? Are you a fan of his classic Tekken 3 look, or do you dig the crazy new space design? Or are you a fan of his squid design, which probably says a lot about your search history. Please do comment down below. And of course, if you like this and want to see more, please do let me know, as I haven't really decided to commit to Tekken just yet, but let's just see how this video does before I decide whether or not to pursue it. So as always everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you all in the next one.